Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi, my name is Alexandra Allred, and I'm based in just outside Dallas, Texas. And I'm so grateful to be here and have this opportunity. My story really is just when I was a brand new mom, and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm holding my 6-month-old baby, and I started watching ESPN. I love sports. And so I was holding my baby and watching as bobsledding came on, and I'd never seen this sport before. And as I'm watching, I'm thinking, this is the most amazing sport in the world. I can't wait to see the women. And so I wait, and of course they never show up. And so I bundle my baby. It's a snowy day there in Ohio, and I go to the library. And I love to tell my college students there was no such thing as the internet, so I had to go to the library and look it up. And what I found was women around the world had been banned from the sport. And they said it was for her own good, it was for her own safety. But since the 1920s, she'd been banned. But in 1940, the Amateur Athletic Union in the United States opened up a competition for women to be in a 4-man bobsled race. But no one could have predicted that a woman was going to win. And Catherine Dewey, who's the great-granddaughter of Melville Dewey, as in the Dewey Decimal System, and she won. And this did not sit well. 2 days later, they stripped her of her medal, and they banned women from the sport. And when I saw this, it was intolerable. And so baby in tow, I went back home and I wrote letters. And again, to my college students, I say, and so I was typing it out and doing each letter. And I wrote letters to the IOC, the USOC. I sent it to magazines and newspapers, and I protested that women were banned from this sport. And I did a lot of trash talking too. You know, I could do this. This is intolerable. There's no excuse for this. And about 2 months later, I get a phone call. And this very deep voiced man, Howard Lowry. And he said, we're going to have the first ever U.S. women's training camp. Are you coming, big mouth? And I remember all these years later, I'm on the phone. There's no such thing as a mobile phone. And I'm staring out the window at all the snow outside. And I've got my baby in my hand. And I say, yeah, I'll be there. Because I've done all this trash talking. I have to be there. And so I hang up the phone and I think, oh my God, what have I done? And of course, my husband gets home that night, and I'm saying, here's the baby. She needs to be She needs to be changed. I got to start training for bobsled. What? And so I have to explain to him what happened. And flash forward, I went with the support of my own family. I was able to go, and I get there and I meet the most extraordinary women from all over the country, all different backgrounds, who in varying forms were just as put off as I was. And they were like, I'm here. We knew nothing about the sport. And so we start to train, and we start to learn. And over a period of time, there's the first ever national push championship. And I won. And the woman who won silver, both of us were pregnant. And I love to tell that story because it just lends to just the power that women have. You know, and I joke because you all have known when a man gets a head cold, right? And we were actually having morning sickness while we're competing, and yet we won. And this was such a triumphant moment. And then just not even hours later, we had people actually come up to us and say, as we're named the first national team for the United States, this means nothing, right? And so we were really just shocked that we had this historic, triumphant moment, and there was this sisterhood. And all of a sudden, we have people coming up to us and saying, well, what are you trying to prove? Well, why do you want to do this? And they would never occur to them to ask themselves, why do you want to do this? But, why do you want to do this? What are you trying to prove? And so there was a lot of, you just go home and for me and for Liz, take care of your baby. And it was just a shocking thing for us. And so, one of the things that happened to us a lot was they'd say, well, it's not really a national team if you don't have bylaws. So we wrote the bylaws. Well, you have no training. You have no idea what you're doing. So we raised the money and we went to other countries and we trained over there. And it's a fun story to tell, but one of the first countries, Trinidad and Jamaica, those teams actually started helping training the American women because we had no coaches. And unlike any sport, bobsledding is one of the most dangerous sports in the world. And years later, we had the US men even say, there's no way any of us would have done what you guys did. Because in the sport of bobsled, you stay in the back as a brake person for a long time before you can be a driver. And so for us to just literally flip a coin in another country and go, okay, who's going to drive? And that's how we learned to drive. So there was many crashes, lots of hospital visits, broken bones, and fear, like honest to goodness fear. But at that point, we'd had so many people so intolerant to the women, and not just the United States, all around the world. There was no way, there was no going back. We couldn't go back. And I love to say to my students, to my own daughters, this was about you. This was not about us anymore, because the wall of resistance and the intolerance had become so overwhelming that we just kept digging in. And we can admit now when we get together that how scared we were many times, but we went. And if there was an opportunity, we went. And a favorite story I have is when we were in Germany, and it used to be the Berlin Wall had just come down, and Liz and I are partners. And I remember we walked into this extraordinary hotel, and I looked around and I saw some of the other countries, and they were smaller than Liz and I. And I looked at Liz and I said, we got this, we can do this. And then it was a little bit later on that the Swiss and the Germans arrived, these huge women. And I remember we get on the elevator, and just like a scene in a movie, chunk, chunk, the elevator kind of goes down. And I look at Liz when they got off the elevator and I said, there's nothing wrong with second place. And I would say that again with the second Swiss team, third, fourth. Ultimately, we came in fifth place, but we were very proud of ourselves. And for our award, we as women, we got boxes of laundry detergent. And for us, again, that just hardened our resolve that we were in the right place. This is what we were supposed to do. And one of the most beautiful things that happened was our competitors were also our allies, all of us, all the countries. We all came together and we worked. We moved sleds together. We sanded the runners, the blades under the bobsled together. We were a cohesive unit, all these countries from around the world. And then when it came time to compete, then we were competitors. But we worked as a collaborative unit to make this happen. And for 8 hard years, we fought and wrote letters and protested and raised money and competed with each other until finally the women were allowed into the US Olympics. The Olympic Games. And so that was and at that point, many of us did leave. We had growing families. We were taking care of other things, but it was such an honor to have other women step in and just sort of take over where we one by one stepped out. And I love to say that another proud moment for us was bobsledding is a very expensive sport. And when we did finally get our first sponsor, when we finally got a sponsor, we voted as a team, the women, to give a portion of our money that we were never given ourselves to the men so that we could raise up the whole bobsled program. And for me, that this journey and that story was about who we were, not just as women, but as true competitors and people who were trying to just stop this level of intolerance where people, just because someone is new or they don't fit what historically was allowed, doesn't mean it was wrong. It just means that now we're growing as people. And we gave our money that was never given to us. We gave to the men's program to help grow the entire program, not just the women's program. And so when I tell this story to my students, to whoever, some of the biggest questions, the biggest takeaways were, if we had given into this, if I had never protested this, if the first many times we were told, go home, never in your lifetime is this ever going to be an Olympic sport, who would have benefited from this the most? Well, it wasn't the men's program, I'll tell you that. But it wouldn't have helped our daughters. And frankly, it wouldn't have helped boys either. When we let everybody in and let everybody compete, everybody grows. And the other questions I like to ask is, who says I can't? And, my impulse was so strong when I first learned that Catherine Dewey had her medal stripped from her and women were forever banned again. I was so mad that I never stopped to think, well, who can say that? It didn't even occur to me. And isn't that a beautiful thing? If it just never occurs to any of us that we can't be shut down, then how can we be shut down? And so that was another big takeaway. But the biggest thing was, and what's the end of the story? And this is my favorite part of the story is, so we had been in a dry spell, the United States, for more than over half a century. We'd never won a gold medal. And when we finally got the women into the Olympic Games, it was the baby of our team, Jill Bakken, who broke the streak and won the world's first ever women's Olympic bobsled medal. And we just loved that story so much that she had been yelled at herself. What are you trying to prove? How are you, what do you think? Why are you here? And she brings home the gold. And so I just want to say again and again and again, intolerance is only powerful because we let it be. And as soon as we decide, everyone, that that's not okay, that all of us should have an opportunity for whatever that could make us grow, that's when intolerance just triples up and blows away. And that's my story.
Alexandra, your story is so, so, so empowering. Oh my gosh. You're the kind of woman who makes me want to wake up and do what I do every single day. I get the honor and the privilege of meeting incredible human beings who defy gravity rules, rule breakers. And you certainly pave the way for women to show up in this sport. It's crazy listening to you speak and what you've gone through, and for you to be given laundry detergent as a prize. I mean, how insulting is that?
Yeah.
You've got to laugh when you look back years later,
Yes.
right?
Yes, we do. It's been a lot of fun.
So tell me something. What shifted inside you when you realized that women had been banned from bobsledding? What was it that ignited this fire?
I love all people, but I love women so much because we've been held back more than we've been pushed forward. And I have this brand new baby, and that in of itself is such an amazing physical accomplishment, right? It's a big deal. It's extraordinary what we can do on so many levels. And to be sitting there and realize women aren't even allowed to bobsled. Well, why? My own background is I used to be a tournament fighter. And so as a competitive fighter, I've been punched and kicked by men. I thought there's no way that you can tell me that I can't bobsled if I get in the ring and I fight with men. But for the other women on my team, they all have different reasons. But at the end of the day, it was mostly hearing you can't do that. And when you want to say why, and the answer is, well, you're a woman. That's the call to duty, that we have to stand for all of our sisters. And you and I spoke earlier, and I thought about something you said. You're such a role model and such a fantastic person. But for days, I thought about something you said when you were just saying that, you know, I'm not the hero of this story. We're not, it's what we can give for others. And I've owned that since you said that. I love it so much. And so that's kind of, I didn't realize it then, but thanks to you, I realize now that's what this was about, was for generations to come and little girls who think that they want to do something that people say you can't just because you're a girl. Can't happen.
I love it. Until our daughters, our granddaughters see us in action, they don't know the possibility. You didn't have that as a role model. It was just your pure defiance that got you there. But now you've paved the way. You're an example, and girls worldwide can see that anything is possible.
Yes.
So when you wrote to the Olympic Committee, did you believe anything would happen?
No. I mean, you know, because you're, and I wrote so many letters, and the gist of everything I wrote was, how can this be? And to think now that I was saying it's 1993, how can this be? And now here we are in 2026, and there's a lot of crazy things that are still happening. And so I really, you know, I call upon all our girls and our women to just, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be something as insane as bobsledding. I don't recommend that. But just to stand up for whatever it is that you believe will better everyone. You know, the 52% of the world population are female. Why are why are we still holding ourselves back?
Yeah, that is so true. Now, what did it feel like when you got that phone call inviting you to the trials?
I'm not kidding when I say my first reaction was, yeah, I'll be there. Because I was thinking, how dare you call me out on this? And then, and then I instantly hung up the phone, and I remember staring out at the snow and thinking, I don't know the first thing about bobsledding. Does it have a steering wheel? Are there brakes? How does this work? So,
Oh my
and yeah, and
God.
I got there, and they told us, and I don't know, for those of you who watched the Olympics, I think it was Travis Kelsey who got in, or no, his brother. I'm going blank. I'm going blank on his name. Forgive me. But he did a video of himself, this big burly, you know, Philadelphia Eagle football player, and he said he was screaming the entire time he went down the bobsled. People are terrified when they get out of the bobsled because it's not what you think. You don't run, jump in. It's loud and it's aggressive and scary, and the hits really hurt. And so I remember the first time I went down, I thought, ouch. But I also thought, yeah, I got to do this again. And because we weren't given equipment, we literally were taping volleyball pads to our body. We were
Serious?
duct taping pads to our hips, to our knees, to our elbows, our shoulders, everything.
Protection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So was there a moment that you wanted to quit during those 8 years?
So the other day, talking to the original 30 years later, the 9 of us are still very tight. And something came up about that, and we all burst out laughing and said, a moment? There was probably 30 moments. There were so many moments. And
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I speak for the entire first ever women's bobsled team when I say we stuck in there because everyone kept telling us, you can't do this.
Do it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
there were tears and broken bones. I mean, Liz Parsmedstad had a baby, terrible crash in Calgary, and she went home and she had broken ribs, pulled ligaments from her sternum, bruises all over, couldn't hold her baby at first. And we were all so sad, and none of us were going to judge her if she said, you know what, I'm not coming back. And about a month later, we heard from her, and she said, all right, get ready, I'll be back. XYZ,
Oh,
you know, this certain time. And we thought, bring it, sister. We're waiting for you.
this was a feisty group of women. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. So how did you reconcile missing milestones with your children while chasing this dream?
That is a hard one because there were tears. Again, no such thing as a cell phone. So I'd have to get on a payphone and
Yeah.
call home and find out that my first baby, I missed her first steps. My second baby, I missed her first tooth coming in. And so it was really hard. But again, I sat down and talked with myself many times and said, this is way bigger than me.
Yeah.
If I leave, and many women left. That's why I say the original 9 who stayed were the core. There
Yes.
were many, many more women, but they would either have a crash and leave, or they would let the naysayers just sort of beat them
Next to
down and
that.
leave. And
Yeah.
so that was my talk was, this is for my girls. This is for everyone's girls. And so, you
Oh,
know,
wow.
and look
So,
who won.
mhm,
Alana Myers-Taylor just won the gold medal, and she's a 41-year-old mom.
that's just incredible.
I know.
So, what did the phrase "women don't belong here" ignite in you?
Such a deep untruth, and such a deep, this is historically, this has just always been, and I'm from, I know I graduated from high school in the 80s. So I remember there always being conversations about, you can't do this, you can't do that. When I first played soccer, the only way I could play was I belonged to the Springfield Boys Club. There was no girls club. And so those are the kind of things that we just, and again, 2026, and we're still having some conversations we shouldn't be having. And so that's why I knew, just, you don't belong here. I don't belong here. What are you saying?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember joining the woodwork class in high school. And I was being told to go to home economics, right? So my mother had a restaurant. I knew how to cook. My mother had a seamstress business. I knew how to sew. So they wanted me to go and do stuff that I already knew how to do. And I pushed my way into woodwork. I was the first girl and never again did a
Nice.
little girl go into woodwork. My mother still has the tray that I made for her when I was 13.
That's
She was
awesome.
so proud of that tray. But you're right. We have to insert ourselves in these spaces and create the path for the next generation. So, what did you learn about systemic intolerance through sport?
You know, and it's a history that keeps repeating itself, right? But in sport, it is, as I said in the closing of the story, which is, as long as we accept that, you know, everyone thinks strength is the most powerful thing in the world, and we focus so much on strength and power. But the most powerful thing that's driving so many things in this world right now, and has always, is intolerance. And when we give permission to that, when we give into and make excuses for intolerance, we
Yes.
make this really awful thing so powerful. And it turns out that this mom sitting on a couch holding her baby on a snowy day watching sports, and just says, nope, I'm going to have to fight this. Not, it's a powerful thing. And can you imagine if just every girl and every young woman and every senior woman all just started writing letters and saying, I'm not going to vote for, I'm not going to stand for, I'm not going to listen to. Holy smokes, the world would turn on its side. I mean, really, it would be the most empowering thing ever.
Yeah, that is so amazing. Now, how is women's history in sport a mirror of women's history in society, do you think?
Oh, I love this question because, as it happens, I teach women's sports history at
Okay.
university level. And
Wow.
one of the things that I love so much is at the end of my course, and I kind of go through ancient Greece all the way through time, and the we've always had Amazons, and everyone says Amazons were a myth. No, they weren't. And we're
Wow.
finding that they've always been there
Yeah.
throughout Asia and Africa, right?
Yeah.
And so the matriarchal society was always how we were. And so
Yeah.
it's always been that way. And then a shift came. And then we started kind of making, excuses or whatever. Intolerance grows, right? And
Mhm.
but in sport actually kind of shadows that, because then when women finally could get into sport, it was white women only. It was elite, wealthy white women. And then it slowly started opening up. And we're, sports wise, for women, we're in a really great place right now. But at the end, and so I go through all the way up to now. At the end of this semester, I ask my students, male and female, what did you learn? And you know, why are things like violence against women, why does that still exist?
Yeah.
My favorite answer to the first question is my men and women always say, I had no idea there was this much women's history in sport.
Oh,
And I
wow.
think, okay, well, now you know. So
Yeah.
spread the word. And it makes me happy that they admit that to me and they've realized their eyes are
Mhm.
open. But the second question is always really tough for me because both male and female students will say, yeah, violence against women, it's just always been that way. And that's too bad. And then it's always it's my new bobsled, women aren't allowed to bobsled moment for me. It's
Yeah.
intolerable and I'm fighting it because I will always send back everyone notes saying, no, there is something we can do about it. It's
Yeah.
not okay. It's not just the way it is. And that's that intolerance that I was talking about that gives
Yes.
power. Yeah, very destructive, harmful power is we all go, yeah, that's terrible. Well, no, it's more than terrible. It is intolerable and we have to stop it and we have to find new ways. And the first way you stop it is you don't just go, yeah, that's just the way it's always been.
No,
Yeah.
no, you go against that. Now, my last two questions for you are a bit of a thought experiment. In the first one, I'm going to teleport you back to that young woman sitting, looking outside her window at the snow and plucking up the courage to write this letter. If you could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be? And I'm asking this in case there's a young woman who's deciding to make a decision to take a stand about some injustice that she sees. What 3 nuggets of wisdom can you share?
Oh my word, that is such a great question. And so I hope she's out there and I hope there are many of you out there thinking about taking a stand, whatever it is. I think the first thing that I would say in regards to writing that letter is I would go back and I'd say, I promise that if you go into this with all your passion, all your heart, and you find your girl tribe, it's you will see success. Doesn't mean you're going to get the gold medal, but you will have success and you will have moved that that block, that obstacle. You will have moved it just a little bit, a lot or just a little bit. Even if it's just a little bit, then there will be more who will join in. And I know that's true. So I would tell myself that. And then I would also tell myself it's going to be hard. And I mentioned earlier that I used to be a fighter. And today I teach self-defense. And because I just think empowerment to women is so important. And so I always teach women how to break boards with their hands. And it's always scary and they don't want to do it. But once they've done it, it is so fun to watch them realize their own power. In fact, I joke because they'll slam through that board and then all of a sudden, I swear to you, their voices get deeper and they're like, yeah, I got to go to the grocery store now. I mean, the power that they feel having done that. And here's what it is. It's not about the board. It's about that moment where you're thinking, I'm about to hit my hand against this board and it's going to hurt. And they smash through it anyway. And so I always tell my students, if you stare at that obstacle, if you're just staring right at it, you're never going to break through it. But if you see the obstacle, but you look through it, you're going to smash through it every single time. And so that's number 2. And then the third one would just be, I found my team. And 30 years later, we've never had one fight, the 9 of us. We've never had a fight 30 years later because we were always driven for the same goal. And so you got to find your true tribe. You got to find your people. And then together, man, you guys can do anything.
Oh, I love it. And that finding of the team, I'm trying to think of the proverb in Africa where we believe that, when you have a twig or a stick and it stands on its own, it's easy to break it. Yet if you get a bunch of twigs and you bind them together, you cannot break them.
Oh,
And that's exactly what you've done with your team. You guys have stuck together. You've had each other's backs, and you're still a strong unit even now. So I absolutely love the fact that that bond was not broken throughout the
Yeah.
years. That's absolutely beautiful. Last question is futuristic this time.
Okay.
And I'm going to teleport you into the future, and we are going to go and meet the 90-year-old you. And she is sitting in her rocking chair, surrounded by her children, her grandchildren. Knowing you, you're probably on a sports field somewhere doing something crazy still. With science and technology, I can see you on your feet. But if we could teleport to go and sit with a 90-year-old you and have a conversation with her, what will you say to her when you finally meet her? And I'll tell you why I like asking women this question before you answer. A lot of women don't realize that the wise woman is already in us. She was always there in you as a young woman, as a young mom. She was that whisper, that little voice in your head that said, write that letter. And you listened and you changed the course of history because of it. So, what will you say to your wise woman when you finally meet her?
Well, first I have to tell you a funny story. I've always remembered this. There was a group of college students, and they were doing this race, but it was off trail, very hilly, and there was a 90-year-old woman, and she was in this race, and she was exactly 90. And at the end of the race, somebody asked her, and they said, "Wow, how did you have the energy? What kept you in this race?" And she said, every time I'd get over to a hill, I'd see that there was a group that I'd been following of young people. And one of them would invariably look up, and they'd see me at the top of the hill, and they'd say, "Here comes that old lady." And then they'd get their energy, and then they'd keep on walking. And I've always remembered that. And I tell my daughters that all the time, is that so my goal when I'm 90 is that I'm going to still be pushing my daughters to do what they need to be doing. and not even out of respect. If they look over and go, here she comes again, that's fine with me. So what I would tell my 90-year-old self is stay healthy, because I want to be able to torture my grandchildren and my daughters, but in the most loving way. I want to tell myself that everything you've done is worth it. And when you get to 90, you're going to see how much your daughters and granddaughters, but also grandson, they're now existing in a much kinder and more supportive world. And we're unified. And I want to be able to tell her that and know that it's true.
I absolutely love it. And I think you would have to thank her too for the courage that she gave you to be who you are in this life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely
And actually
great.
that comes from my grandmother and my mother. They weren't athletic, but they always bucked the system if they thought it was for the right reason.
So you come from a long line of strong, defiant women, and you're
Yes.
putting it on. I love
Yeah.
it. Alexandra, thank you so much for coming and sharing this inspiring story with our community today. It's
Thank
an
you for having me.
absolute honor. And like I said, you are the kind of woman that makes me want to wake up and do what I do, curating these amazing stories and sharing them with the world. Thank you for being you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We're a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share these stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So if you are a woman who is seeing something in your environment that you're not happy about, do something about it. It can be as simple as writing a letter to the right people, taking a stand, saying, I don't like what I see, this has to change. Because change comes from us. We're the rule breakers who bring about change when there is intolerance against women. So please tag a friend on this podcast, share it on your social media. Let's spread the inspiration, ladies. Absolute honor to have met you, Alexandra.
You too.
I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates, and join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.